Welcome to NeedleXChange, conversations on the art of thread. I'm your host, Jamie Chalmers, aka Mr. X-Stitch, and this is the second part of my conversation with artist Melissa English Campbell. In this half, we dive into her experiments with weaving, disrupting patterns, weaving with sticks, and creating mirrored fabrics inspired by folk art traditions. I can't say the words folk art. We also talk about her influences, her love of music, and how teaching has informed her practice. If you haven't yet, go back and listen to episode 104 for the first part of our story, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you don't miss any future episodes. I'll be back next week with somebody else from the world of Stitch, but until then, enjoy the show. When you started learning it, were you doing like familiar weaving? At what point did the concepts that you're now becoming renowned for, what am I on about? The concepts that you are renowned for, when did those start to emerge, or was that a vision that came quite quickly in the process?
I think when I first started, we would, the professors would put up slides of work and we're going to try this. And this is an artist who does this. And one of the things I was responding to in all the slides was kind of the flatness of the weavings. There was very little dimensionality. And that could just be the slides that, that the professors were picking or the techniques the professors wanted to highlight. But I remember looking at them and feeling like I was like bumping up against something and there was no depth. And I was having trouble loving them, like falling in love with the work that was being presented to us. That was frustrating to me, and I wanted to love it so that I would stick with it. So I was responding to the fact that I needed some depth in the weavings to love them. And so I started exploring with patterns that for me looked like they had depth and dimensionality. And that's how I ended up with this grid that I use, that kind of undulating grid that's in a lot of my work. Because to me, it feels like you're kind of looking through windows. It also feels like it's expanding and contracting. So that's some dimensionality. So I was responding to flatness that I was seeing in examples and wanting to see some depth.
Do you think that the fact that you came to this later in life meant you were more comfortable with accepting these ideas as they came to the surface? I feel like sometimes, like again, and I've spoken to other people about this, but when you're trying to teach younger people, who was I talking with about this? Oh, Joetta Maui, when I interviewed her, and we were talking about her students and how sometimes you've got to get them to trust their own processes and then sort of get out of their own way and just be happy with whatever the daft idea seems to be, because if they iterate the daft idea enough times, it becomes like their artistic expression. Do you think you were able to sidestep that more readily to this kind of like quite left field approach to it?
I don't know. Gosh, I know what you're talking about because I bumped into that with my students. And a lot of my lab time with my students was me trying to get them to take a risk. And to just do work that wasn't going to get graded or counted towards something. It was the most challenging thing in the classroom. And I'm sad to see education take that direction. I know. And I don't know if I'm from another generation. So I had an education that did allow a bit more exploration. Not everything was graded. Plus, I had hippie parents, and so there was not a lot of structure in my background. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that.
No. And it's weird because you can't time travel back to your 20-year-old self and go, how would you have dealt with this? At which point,
Right.
But, you alluded to it earlier in some ways where you said that, when you were doing that undergrad thing and somebody bailed you out, it's almost like there might have been a bit of a tension there already. I'm just kind of fascinated by that because I look back now on myself, or we've got this art gallery that I've started in my town, and at the moment we've got an exhibition of work from 15 different schools. So we've got work from nursery children all the way through to A-level children. So that's like 17, 18-year-olds in the same exhibition as like 4-year-olds and all the way through. And I was talking to some of the volunteers who've been students there and just trying to say to them, like, we have a duty to because there isn't the same amount of doing art for art's sake within education as there used to be, I was like, what we've got to do, because we stand in an art gallery as far as these kids are concerned, and some of the volunteers, like there's a guy called Dan who's 22, but as far as the kids from the school are concerned, he's a art gallery guy, so he must have some meaning. And I was saying it's beholden on us to make these guys feel so amazed by what they've done just to reinforce those points, because they need that. They need us to be these bright, shining lights that make them feel amazing about what they're doing. Because it's like, I think that, again, instills in them the value of trying and trying and trying and trying and all those kind of things. And it's something that I'm really quite aware of now, is just anytime I see anybody doing anything, it could be rubbish, but I'm like, that's amazing, because I feel like that's the volume you have to throw it at these days.
I think that recognizing their bravery is so valuable to them, and that's what would feed them. Even if the work hasn't gotten to any kind of level yet where you can really celebrate the work, you can celebrate the bravery in creating something, and kids feel that.
Yeah, I've had a really emotional week the last week just gone, because a lot of the school classes came in and we'd judged the work within each year group. So there might be like 7 schools who've got, let's choose year 5, which would be sort of 9-year-olds, and we choose the first, second and third place of those, and then they'd come in and they'd get these awards, and you'd see them being as proud as punch of all this stuff. And it's just been like, it was really quite emotional. I was in very nearly tears a couple of times, which I wasn't really expecting, but it's such a lovely thing.
That's lovely. Yeah, that's lovely, and that will encourage them to keep going.
I hope so. It's been surprisingly heartwarming for a lot of us. Even the guys who were like from the Learning Partnership, the Academy Trust, they've been like, all the people in the suits, they're all just a bit like, yeah, this is really nice.
That's lovely.
That's been really profound. Do you find, I mean, are there any other connections you make between yourself as someone who was a teacher and a professor to someone as an artist? Are there any other things? Are you able to, like, don't do as I say, but do as I do? Is there any of that? Have you been able to take your own advice about stuff?
One of my courses was a junior design course, and there was 6 hours of lab, and they were meant to just sketch ideas, research ideas, explore ideas, but not like commit to one until there'd been discussion and meetings and evolution and deepening and development, which is what we were talking about before. They absolutely could not do. They'd have one idea, be married to it forever, lock it in, and then just stiffen. And so really the whole lab was me saying, have you heard of this artist who does this? There's a little bit of that in there. Why don't you explore that deeper? You know, just this sort of like shepherding into a deeper research. And I do see myself like having an idea and then just shooting off with it. Like it will come to me fully formed, which is one of the problems. So I can see immediately how to do all of it. And then I'll do it and I'll be like, you know, if I had just sat with that color combination a little longer, I would see that orange would have brought it to life. And it just feels dead to me, which is actually exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm looking at photos of a piece. Like that really needs a little pop of orange. If I had just taken 5 more minutes with a pencil on some paper and drawn it out before I started it, it would have that dimension to it that I'm now missing. So yeah, I'm like, dang it.
That's quite impressive. But I'd imagine it isn't easy. I know full well as a parent that it's just do as I say. Brush your teeth this morning. But what about you, Dad? Don't you mind me? I'll do it later, maybe, when you're not there.
Yep.
So then when did the idea of like using found objects, did that come fairly early? Because it feels to me like that's another glitch, but in a different direction.
Yeah, I was thinking about glitches. Actually, it's a great word for it. I was thinking about disruption and about how you accept the rhythm of the weaving, the pattern that's there that makes the fabric. You just accept it. And what if something interrupted that? And would it be jarring or would it communicate something else, and I just wanted to explore it. So I did. I started to incorporate, and I have to say they're not technically woven in on the loom. They are hand stitched into the fabric to blend with the weaving. So my mom did some weaving before I was born in Maui at the university there. And she told me she would take some seed pods and weave them into the fabric. And the seed pods have a regular shape. They're kind of reliable, but these sticks and branches shift and change. I mean, I could maybe do one rotation on the loom with a straight stick, but then the tension on all the other yarns would be so off. That would be it. And I wanted it to be sort of the piece, like in the piece. So I actually incorporate them after the fabric is off the loom.
Right.
But again, I'm playing with the pattern. So I guess I am using my tapestry needle as sort of to replace the weaving, to continue the rhythm, but to also be able to disrupt it.
It's just a real drama to them. They're really quite stunning. And I don't know what it reminds me of, which it doesn't remind me of this, but what it makes me think of is sometimes you see a tree and a fence has grown or been there for so long that the tree's kind of grown around the fence.
Yes, I love that. I always linger when I see something like that. And we have someone who does a beautiful garden and this fence, picket fence, and there's some beautiful bright bushes, these big red flowers, and there's some on the front of the fence in front of it. But then they've also gardened and whatever it's called, landscaped.
Yeah.
That same bush on the other side of the fence. And so it looks like it's just beautifully choreographed. And I love that when something comes through, incorporates, holds. I was definitely thinking about different ways that things are held and how we hold things. And yeah, all those things were in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, what gets me with those pieces in particular is, like you say, you put them in after the fact, but like it doesn't look like it. It does kind of look like the way you've made the patterns, the way you've made the color play work. I mean, hats off to you, I think is what I'm trying to say, because you've done some right magician work there.
Well, it's what I said earlier, where the yarns in the back that aren't being incorporated, they're loose in the back. And so I can put a tapestry needle on them and bring them forward. And so that's what I've done. So they are still part of the weaving, but the wrapping of them around the sticks is me. I had to do that after the loom.
Right. What have you got weaving heroes?
Well, Annie Albers.
Or have you got art heroes? I just wonder where you take, because something like that, like I don't know how many other people have done those sorts of things. I'm just interested whether there are people that you can say, well, I'm sort of riffing from that idea of that person.
Oh, mostly, I'm looking at nature. I'm immersed in artists. Every time I open Instagram, it's all I want on my feed. And so there's hundreds of artists I see every time I'm on Instagram, and I love them all. And I'm probably a bit of a magpie, picking things up here and there, especially color combinations. But I don't know if I've seen that or not. I think I've seen people wrapping sticks and they're like hanging from really textured tapestries. Mm-hmm. But what was important for me was the holding, the closeness of the stick to the fabric. So that was something, again, just pulling something from me. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I saw that.
Do you know what I'm coming to realize, and I think this again speaks to your early upbringing, is you could probably look at all the people on Instagram all day long, but it feels like what you're making is your stuff. Like this is your own expression, it's your own language, which in some ways is a bit like you negotiating your way through a world where every 2 years it's a different country and sometimes it's a different language, isn't it? I guess in those circumstances you become, I'm Melissa, I'm not Melissa from anywhere. And I guess that's the same with your artistic output, right?
I think, okay, yeah, I think that's fair. I don't feel married to any one style or language or outcome because I never experienced that personally. So it's not reflected in my work. So yeah, so one day I'll be wrapping sticks into my weavings, the next day painting on the surface without feeling like I'm betraying any one school of thought or vision or style because I don't have that kind of foundation.
Yeah. You're homeschooled. You're homeschooled of art in a bus from San Francisco. That's the way it should be. That sounds absolutely perfect. Have you got any, are there any new ideas emerging that you'd care to share?
I am playing with something right now where I separate the fabrics on the loom. So, you know how I said I paint two layers and treat them as separate cloths. So, and then I weave them together. So what I've been exploring is weaving them as separate cloths. So that when I cut them off, two pieces come off the loom.
Right.
And what's so cool about that is they are mirrored because, they're the same painting. So I've been exploring compositions where, so they're both panels are the same, and you put them together and you get an image. So just this week I pulled one off that was swimmers swimming from. I'm not explaining.
Do you know what it's making me think of is like sliding doors. It's like you're allowing multiverses all of a sudden. You're allowing different versions of the same event or something.
Oh, I love that. That's lovely. That's so perfect.
Thing. There you go. You
I'm going to maybe use that in my writing.
The Jamie Chalmers series. We'll just call that one. That's fine. No. That's fascinating, isn't it? Because like you say, because you're already talking about distortion, and then you're just distorting two of the same images from the get-go, and then there's a multiplier effect there, isn't it? So it's like, here's a happy version and a sad version, and if you apply the same subsequent filters to those, or you apply different filters to those, you're extrapolating out in all these different directions. It's just breaking free. That's like mega complex dimensional thinking.
No, actually what fed it was these the folk art from Northern Europe, where there's all these repeats, like in 4 quadrants, like those little Dutch characters, the girl and the boy, and then the windmill, and then it repeats on top, the little blue and white tiles. And that's what I'm trying to do with the weavings, so it's got the origin, I guess, is from seeing old folk art embroidery patterns. How they had like...
Yeah. Black work. And even, like a lot of those like table runners where you'd get the same like folklore sometimes in a single color. I'm thinking of like Ukrainian embroidery and those kind of things.
Yes, I love that stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of that on my Instagram feed right now, and I love it. And I feel like the folk history in there is so rich and has some poignancy for me because I was raised kind of footloose and like anchorless and rootless. And I love the idea that there's like this rich cultural history, and you can look at a pattern and feel connected to your roots, which I don't have. And so I love this idea of these images mirroring each other and it creating I don't know, some kind of history you can track.
Yeah. It's almost like an infographic or something, but a sort of illustrative. It's fascinating because the problem is you get into that territory, don't you? You go, well, woven textiles are ubiquitous. And, the South America has all kinds of different versions of the same thing. Even in Africa, the different cloths and the fabrics and all those kind of things. And it is... I was going to ask you in a way whether you have this responsibility as a weaver to consider weaving within your art, or whether you just go, that's just the medium and I'm just doing my thing and using that medium. Sometimes I think it comes to us all where you have to kind of reflect on the tool I'm using and what that tool means. And weaving's a big one. It's been around since we invented clothes, like you said.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I'm drawn to it is because it is so historical and ancient and worldly. I mean, from all corners of the world, all came to it independently and in their own styles, and then just the ability for it to mix and merge, and is so, it just sums up weaving. And I think initially I had no connection to the history, zero. And I remember male professors when I was a grad student saying, "Oh, that's such a domestic object. Are you exploring your homemaking?" And I remember being so repulsed and embarrassed and feeling like I had to hide that I had been a homemaker, that I had children. So I rejected that, and I really rejected it for years. But now I'm coming back to it, and I'm like, well, actually, I was a caretaker, and that was something. That wasn't nothing. And weaving is kind of like the mark of care and time, and I'm seeing those connections for myself. And I don't have a lot of knowledge of weaving history. I just don't, other than, what you learn in school for being a fiber artist and a fashion major.
There's something about tribes, though, isn't there? There's something about fabric as a recognition of a tribe. And perhaps, in some ways, that's what you're doing is.
I have had a few comments on my social media about appropriation, and I don't know where to take that. I think, and what's interesting is that I've had them from African regions and East Asian regions for the same pattern. So I feel like, and it is one of the reasons that I'm trying to explore more responsive weaving so that it really is coming just 100% for me, because before I was getting them from, I have this Scandinavian weaving pattern book that I love. It's like 125 years old. But I don't know where those Scandinavians got those patterns. Maybe they did, to appropriate them from somewhere else. So maybe I shouldn't be using them. I don't know. And I don't know who the authority is on that. So it's I don't know.
There's a bit of a minefield, isn't it? I suppose it's difficult because I guess you have to tread sensitively through it.
I want to be sensitive to it, but I also, there has to be something for just finding something organically, because originally I saw that pattern on a pair of socks in a gift shop in a museum, and I thought, I've seen that somewhere, and I found it in that pattern book. So I figured out how to set up my loom for it. So
yeah. Have you ever seen Ornue? It's a form of gold work where threads are couched and a picture is created using the couched thread. So it's almost like the gold thread underneath is the warp, and then the weft is this deliberate stitching. And when it's executed really well, you can get really beautiful pictures that are like laying on top of this gold embroidery style.
Gosh, that doesn't sound familiar. Where would I have seen it?
I mean, it was more commonplace back in the day. You're talking like papal outfits, those sorts of things that would happen because it's a form of gold work. It's not the sort of most commonplace thing. I mean, you can find it for sure if you had a look on the Royal School of Needlework Stitch Bank. But just if you wanted to see it, it's kind of, in a way, I want to be able to like show you some images, because I think there are definite similarities there, because in the same way as you're painting on your fabric, you're painting on the warp and then using the weft to make the image. This is like the inverse concept to some extent, because the gold underneath is the warp and then the stitching over the top, which largely, like couching, is just stitching over. It's like if you were putting, stitching over a thread to hold it in place rather than stitching the thread in and out. And then the Ornue is a more deliberate choice of using those threads with different colours and those kind of things. But it's something that, if you've not seen it, therefore, I think you would find quite interesting, because you'll definitely see sort of...
Can you spell it for me?
Yeah, so or is like O-R, which is like French for gold. And then Nue is N-U-E, which is French for Nue. I'm really just failing on my French there. I would say have a look at that, though, because you might find, like I say, you'll find... I think that really interesting, because there's some like visual cues that are very akin to some of the stuff that you've ended up doing. It'd be interesting to see what you thought of that.
Lovely. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll look it up.
Yeah, you have to come back to me on that one. Right. I think I've gone around the houses. I still don't understand what you do, but it's not my place to. I just gaze in magnificence at it. So we'll go on to stuff that I might understand, such as, do you have a favourite band? Do you have a favourite album?
All right. Stuff. So when I was younger, I loved Soft Cell and the Pretenders and Eurythmics and David Bowie, OMD. Mm-hmm. Then I had a reggae decade.
Okay, decade. Good work.
And now I'm completely, I just have on repeat the Leonard Cohen Live in London album.
Okay.
Playing it constantly.
What is it about Leonard Cohen?
Leonard Cohen.
What is it about him?
I also like that he is calm. He's really calm. He's definitely got a settled nervous system. I like the imagery in his lyrics. He collaborated with some Latin musicians, so there's some really lovely rhythms. His backup singers support him in the best way because, he's quite elderly at that concert. I think he's in his 80s, so they support him, and there's just this lovely support system around him to help him shine. It's just it's a great album.
Okay, so then I'm going to go back a decade of reggae, right? Reggae is one of these musical areas that I'm not fully familiar with. I know a bit of lovers rock. Obviously, there's Bob Marley. Obviously, there's the classics. Do you have any particular faves? Is there, if I wanted to listen to the best reggae album, what would you say it was?
No. Oh, shoot. I'm not prepared. I'm sorry. That decade was quite a while ago.
Okay. There's a lot of children in the way since then.
A lot of children have, drained my brain cells. I think it was more the environment. I really enjoyed going to concerts in Golden Gate Park or up north in Mendocino County in California. There's great weekend-long reggae concerts to just kind of unwind.
And then probably not fully recollect somewhere down the line,
right.
maybe. Yeah.
Right, and
That's
then get
fine.
back to real world and the stress of. I think it was like an escape. I think it was like an escape. It was a lovely little mental vacation on the weekends, and it's good to listen to. In California, there's long commutes. I think at one time I had a job where I had a 90-minute ride in the car, a lot of it sitting in traffic, and it just kind of chills you out and just roll with it.
I can dig it. And then before that, so new wave, soft cell, Eurythmics, early synth music, a lot of that quite British as well, I think.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe that's where all the good music was coming from.
I think it definitely was. Yeah, but I can appreciate a lot of that. There's a lot of good tunes out there. It's interesting to me because a lot of that music, particularly stuff like Eurythmics, sort of happened. And I think I was probably 10 or 11 around that sort of time. And it was just there. It's always like some bands like Queen and stuff, they were just there. And now I'm only getting to appreciate them later. But it's the same with the Eurythmics. Eurythmics were kind of there and Annie Lennox was there. And it's only now kind of going back to it. You're actually, these guys are kind of ahead of the curve. They were doing some pretty radical stuff.
Yeah, I just saw OMD in concert. They were in Cleveland. And I was just realizing how deeply steeped my teens and 20s were in their music and just was the backdrop for so much.
Did you have suspicious haircuts as well? Because that was kind of part of it.
I have the wildest, frizziest hair. There's no haircut that works for this, so it's not.
But that whole 1980s Molly Ringwald, Cyndi Lauper probably worked out quite well because you just put a big bow in it.
It was brilliant. I just had to get out of bed and I looked so styled.
That's perfect. What about? And so when you're working, are you listening to music?
Yes, I am. And I have discovered a radio station. It's online. It's eclectic. And so it goes all over the map. It goes 1940s to classical to jazz to current Billie Eilish. And it's escaping me. I love this radio station. It's listener sponsored. It's out of Chico, California. It's called Radio Paradise.
Right.
And it used to be out of Paradise, California, but Paradise burned down and they had to relocate. And it's brilliant, just genius mixing of songs that just one leads into the next. And it's all curated by this one man, no AI. It's genius. It's just, it's the radio station I can leave on for hours without. Okay, sometimes he gets on a Jethro Tull thing and I have to fast forward to the next song. But because of the app, you can skip songs.
Right.
So it's my constant companion.
Yeah, that's pretty groovy. There's a thing that's similar that's called Soma FM that I kind of listen to online. They've got slightly more distilled channels, but they're quite genre specific as well. So they do have like 1980s pop, but they also have like proper Americana music. They also have reggae music, but then there's also like one that I like that's called is it called the In Kraut or something? It's like 1960s slightly psychedelic pop music. Then sometimes they'll have like really ethereal digital guitar-y music or whatever. And it's just like you can kind of spin through the channels depending on what mood you're in. But I'm with you there. If it stays a bit weird. I like it when you just hear a song and you're like, huh, what's that all about? You know, and just like something you haven't heard before. You just go, huh.
I love that. I love that it isn't the same 100 songs every hour. It's this owner of the station just has massive knowledge and database of music, and constant surprises like how he matches up. Yeah, like a 1940s song with a 1980s song, and they're great, the one after the other.
Actually, that just reminds me, I had a really good mix on a mix a long time ago where someone had taken Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics and managed to mix it into Smack My Bitch Up by The Prodigy, which honestly, it really worked. I was like so impressed with that. That was a really good mix. I can't find it on my computer.
That's great.
So, yeah, and I guess that kind of stuff then works because it doesn't really matter what you're working on because it's kind of every mood, and then your work is almost like it's every mood as well.
It's like there's a lot of times in the studio where I can't listen to a podcast or a book because I'm counting, and I just need that company to keep me working. And so the music, it's just brilliant. I'd be lost without that radio station.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Podcasts, got any favorite podcasts? Obviously NeedleXChange, but that's a given.
Well, obviously. NeedleXChange. The podcasts I really loved have kind of folded. I really loved The Jealous Curator.
Right.
What was that other one? It was out of Canada. It was a group of artists just supporting each other and talking about strategies for getting through commission proposals or working through artworks. And it was just so real, and people just talking about their experiences and getting advice on it. I really loved that one, but that's been gone a long time now. I really liked one called How to Own the Room. I think that has stopped also. And that one was brilliant.
How do you own the room then?
Well, what the host did would interview famous women who were known for being good speakers and ask them how they got to where they are. And so you would just hear about their journeys from being, newbies to being very confident and self-assured on stage or on, wherever it was that they were well known for being. It was just lovely to hear their voices explaining their processes. And each one was a little different, but mostly, be comfortable in your clothing and be comfortable in, I don't know. Yeah, don't believe in imposter syndrome. I think that's the biggest one I took away from that podcast was imposter syndrome is just internalized misogyny. And so don't buy into it.
Yeah. I heard something which wasn't dissimilar to that, which was that the concept of an adult is just a big mistake. And that none of us are adults. We're all just big kids just making it up as we're going along. But our children look up at us and think we've got all the answers. We're like, you poor fools. We don't know. But we look up at our parents.
That's what I use the podcast for, because I didn't get a lot of parenting. I'm using the podcast to make up for gaps.
Yeah, that's fair. I think my children are aware I'm a fairly flawed human being now, but at the same time, I'm still like the greatest man that ever lived. I'm sure that's the path I'm trying to put them on, isn't it? Yeah.
I hope you get to stay on that pedestal as long as possible.
No, it's the eye rolling has already started. It's gone. It's gone. Yeah.
You do have one close to 9 years old. That's when the heavy eye rolling starts.
Do you have a favorite book, or what was the last good book you read? Oh, dyslexia. Does that mean actually this is the point in this conversation?
No, I have figured out reading. because I did a lot of it as a child. I just learned that I wasn't actually reading recently. I was just memorizing the tops of the words.
Yeah.
And there's a new font out. It's not new. I think it's been out about 10 years now for dyslexics. So they see the whole word, which is really interesting. But what I learned to do was just completely turn my ears off. So now if I'm reading a text and my husband says something to me, I am not there. And so that is something he has had to learn. And I am not being rude. I cannot hear when I read.
That's interesting.
So I did a lot of reading. And most recently, I've been reading Octavia Butler.
Okay.
Who is Afrofuturistic writer, science fiction.
Right.
So good, so prescient, amazing brain. I love her mind. Sadly, she passed away really young. But the first book of hers I read made me want to read all of her other books, which
amazing.
Was The Parable of the Sower.
Okay.
So good. Totally predicted everything that's happening right now. So it's like, oh my God. But before that, I would read. I was trying to think of, I knew this question was coming, so I was trying to think of what books I read the most often. And I think this is weird, but I think it's Douglas Adams stuff. Like, I think I would go to him to like self-soothe and reread his stuff during really stressful times.
That's a good shout. I just wanted to pick up on what you said there. You said that you would only read like the tops of words.
Yeah, I don't know. And this could just be the current theory.
Right.
But currently the theory is that because I'm good visualizer and memorizer of shapes, that I know what words look like the first dot, like, you know how you have like the dot matrix printers. When they would print out back in the day when I was an administrative assistant and we used I knew what that sentence would going to be after the second line of dots. Right. So it's like, I don't know, just a coping mechanism, just something your brain learns to do to navigate the world it's in.
Yeah. It's also pattern recognition.
Pattern recognition. I had a job where I had to recognize patterns, and I was really good at it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never really clocked that before. Sometimes with Annie, who's my youngest, it's interesting because she's still learning to read, obviously, but she's better at longer words than she's at shorter words. And it's interesting to wonder on that, why she'll, like the word no, she'll just get it the wrong way around pretty consistently. And we're trying different things as like coloured film that you can put over it, some people say, depending on the shading. Or sometimes she would like put her hand over it as though making it less glary made it easier or something. And that's interesting what you said there, because sometimes we think that she's guessing the words, and it'd be interesting if she's guessing them because she's kind of looking at the tops, or there's something like that, the pattern.
Something in the rhythm of the shapes.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've not thought that before. Oh, good. Television and film, any recommendations? Any loves?
I just finished that series, Hajigiri. Have you seen that one?
I have not, no.
It's Japanese British.
Okay.
So it's half of it is in Tokyo and the other half is in London. Really good. I think that's Netflix. But when I was a mom and things were completely out of control and I had no autonomy, I loved to just squirrel away and watch Kill Bill.
Okay. Great show.
It was so therapeutic. Everybody had so much agency over their bodies.
Just punch my way out of a grave, make my toe wiggle, all of that, isn't it? Yeah.
So that was soothing. And now, actually, since the pandemic, total flip, a total change. I've rewatched Pride and Prejudice, the 95 TV series.
It's Colin Firth, that one, isn't it?
That's with Colin Firth. I'll just have it on as like a soothing companion, something to calm the nerves. It's relatable.
I like that. That is quite the shift. I think that's a healthy shift. If it gone the other direction, people would be wondering, why is Kill Bill as a... I like that parenting tool. Maybe I should show my children that and just be like, this is...
No.
It's what it's really like, girls, if you mess.
Secret therapy.
Secret therapy. That's so good. That's so good. Okay. And then is there a fact that not a lot of people know about Melissa English Campbell? I mean, you've had a life. So, I mean, there's always that. But
I think some people know this, but when I was born, we lived in San Francisco. It was in 1969, and my parents' neighbor was Janis Joplin. And so it was a kind of like old Victorian era building. And so everyone just left their doors open and you could walk in and out of each other's flats. And so Janis Joplin was our neighbor and would come in and use our phone and I hang out. So I guess
that's cool. Not anybody else is going to be saying that. Did she recommend that you paved paradise and put up a parking lot? Probably. Was that her? That
was Chrissy Hines.
Oh God, no! She was like, "Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz?" And then they used that for a Mercedes Benz advert later on after she died, didn't she? Which is like
a total opposite of her lifestyle. No, she was. All the stories come from my parents because I was a baby, but I guess she was a force and not good at paying her phone bill. So she would come over, or electricity bill. She would come over and use the phone to get the electrical company to turn electricity back on. And they had fun exchanges. I think my dad's favorite story is she had a convertible Carmen Ghia and a little dog. I think his name was Skippy. I don't remember. This is my dad's story. I'm just repeating it. But she would drive kind of crazily through San Francisco. And I guess one time he flew out of the car. And so she flew into my parents' apartment because it was a period where her phone had been shut off. And she called the local radio station and said, hey, this is Janis. My dog's out there somewhere. If someone could call in the radio station and let me know if you find him. And someone on Haight Street found him and called the radio station. And my dad's story, or maybe he got that from Janis, is that he had a homing beacon for the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. So she was kind of expecting he would show up there. So so my parents have stories. I don't, because, obviously I wasn't.
I mean, you're doing your self as a service excellent. You've got millions of stories, but we'll save that for the return. Melissa, thank you for having NeedleXChange with me.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it very much.